And I'm like, oh, I may have just totally screwed all of this up.
For Taylor and Garrett, their love story was pure serendipity, written in the stars and inked on their skin.
I have a little hydrogen tattoo on my wrist that was like,
I've got a quantum equation on my back of my right arm.
no way.
Falling in love was effortless, but choosing to build a life together, that was something more.
But we love each other, so we're like, well, we can make this work. And then like the real world sits in, and it's like things that sounded good in practice are hard.
Because love isn't just about finding the right person. It's about the choices you make along the way.
What do you think was your biggest hiccup on the way to the altar?
For Taylor, the dream was San Diego. Ocean air, endless sun, closer to family.
Compromise is the word that is thrown around, but until you actually do it in a marriage, I don't think you actually understand what that means.
For Garrett, the future he built and his family were inextricably connected to the East Coast.
And me in particular, I felt bad because like I told Taylor I would, give this a go, and it's something I could see myself doing. And then when it came down to it, like I started to feel...
In this episode of Blind Love, Taylor and Garrett open up about the decisions that shaped their relationship, the challenges that made them stronger, and the love that carried them through it all.
Taylor and I both like had many moments just sitting on the couch, holding each other's hands and like trying to figure out what to do.
Because love isn't just about where you end up. It's about who you become along the way. So today we have Taylor and Garrett from season 7, the golden couple of their season. They were so golden that Taylor wore a gold-plated, what would you call that?
I would
Armor?
probably call it armor,
Yeah.
just getting.
It was badass.
I was the trophy wife.
Yeah.
That's
Yes, I love it. I love it, literally.
It
The
was pretty
trophy
cool.
wife.
It was pretty cool. It was probably one of the coolest
Yeah, I think
outfits anyone's ever worn.
ever on a reunion. Yes, so cheers to that.
What were you thinking? What were you thinking when you picked out your outfit?
I was thinking I wanted it to be edgy and memorable. I feel like for me, I love fashion, and that was kind of my Met Gala. So I was like, might as well take a risk and do something like pick something that's a little edgy but cool and flattering. And it also just made me look ripped. I was like, I don't have to
Did.
work out before going to the reunion. So it was
Yeah.
also a selfish choice.
I love it. I'm gonna take a page out of your book, and I'm just gonna start wearing armor in like all of my like beach pictures. Like I don't need to work out. I'm just gonna wear some armor.
I'm gonna get the Batman suit. Well, Garrett might actually end up at the Met Gala. I mean, what is the status of? You've been doing some cool stuff, Garrett. I've seen they've been taking notes on some of your fashion icon status.
Were you officially doing modeling? I don't know if that was just a rumor or if that was actually true.
No, it's weird. People took and ran with like the whole thing, and there were people that were criticized too, like talking about he went on the show to like kickstart his modeling career. I'm like, no, no. I connected with this designer in San Diego, so we spent time in San Diego, and I followed this designer and learned he lived in San Diego and wanted to reach out to him to talk to him about a piece. And he's really into textiles. He's like he's the only like male member of this like knitting society in like Southern California, and it wasn't paid or anything. It was just representing his brand. He wanted his customers to represent his brand. It's a really cool idea, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
But he looked good.
So let's take like a step back. Like you're getting ready to leave for the pods. Like what's going through your mind? Is there skepticism? Is there nerves, excitement? Is there expectation, no expectation? What was that like for each of you?
I was pretty skeptical. I kind of assumed I'd leave in the first couple of days or something. Like I wouldn't find someone that I was interested in, or like was worried maybe wouldn't be interested in me. So I think I just went in with like very little expectations. I did stress myself out being pretty type A and wanting to be as prepared as possible. So I think like I was stressed out about packing enough like snacks and like enough clothes and like
Mhm.
all the things.
Mhm. How many suitcases
Snacks
did
are
you have?
important.
AP's kid like came in my room. They're like, "Are you preparing for an apocalypse in here?" And I was like, I was like, I don't know. I like heard that they might not feed us here. So
I gained a lot of weight when
I
I
know.
was
So
there.
all I heard, you guys, like on the other side, was him eating. Like, and I have misophonia really bad. Like, I cannot. The sound of chewing, it like grates on my soul. And so that's how I knew I really loved him because he was just chomping in my ear just hours on end. And I'm like, are you seriously eating again? Like, he stress eats.
Was it stressful for you? I was definitely stressed out. It was stressful for me.
I
Mhm.
was so stressed, you guys. I
Stress
was so
eating.
stressed.
I lose my appetite, like, that I'm the opposite, like, I completely lose my appetite, like, I just can't hunger does not come for me. So for you, Garrett, how was it coming in to the pots?
2 weeks before this, I had no idea. I didn't know I was done, already turned it down twice. And so when they called me like 2 weeks to go, I was living in Virginia Beach at the time. I owned a place in Fredericksburg and Virginia Beach, and I was living there for the summer. And they called me and were like, one last time, like, hello, we'd like to try to get you to go. And I was surprised because it was 2.5 months before that. I told them no for the last time. And so it was very strange. And so it was a quick turnaround for me. So I didn't really have time to like mentally prepare or even like logistically prepare. I just immediately like that weekend in a whirlwind, like picked up my life, moved back to Fredericksburg, got clothes together, and threw them in a suitcase, sent them to the producer, and had to figure out stuff at work and my life and all that to be able to get on a plane within like under 2 weeks. And so I didn't really. I was breathing on the plane, like thinking about it. I was like, okay, what am I doing? What am I getting myself into? I started taking notes, like, what am I looking for in a partner? Like,
You're like, "Okay, now I gotta think about that."
So Garrett, I'm actually really interested. We talked a little bit. I think it was Chelsea who talked to you, right?
yeah, because I was still saying no, even when they called me back a third time. I was just thinking through it, and to the point where I think I've pissed off my recruiter a little bit because she gave me a deadline of like Wednesday. I did, and by Wednesday I was like, I'm still not convinced. Like, what do you? She's like, what do you need to know? I was like, because I started reading articles. My parents started sending me articles once I told them it was serious about this, and it wasn't like good. And so I was like, well, I care about my routine, my health, like sleep. So this stuff matters to me. And so she was like, would it help if you could speak to a previous cast member? I was like, that'd be great. And if Chelsea had just started working for them. So she got me on the phone with her and I got to ask her all the pointed questions like, sleep, food, this and that. And she was like, she made me feel really good about it. Everything's your choice. And I would stand up to this too. Like everything is your choice.
Yeah.
You feel influenced to stay later and to, and also you are tired and all these things. So it all comes into play, but there was no mistreatment by any means. So I'm glad that Chelsea was able to clear that up for me and make me feel good about it. And she ultimately, yeah, was the one that I think was the final, like, okay, cool, I should do this. I feel good about this.
That's honestly so cool. I know that she feels so happy about that, and, like, it's just amazing because here you are with your beautiful wife, and, like, this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't have gone there.
A lot of things had to go right just to get on the plane. And then I keep saying this to everybody, it was just such a beautiful accident. Like I feel so lucky because a lot of things had to go right to even get on the plane, and then I think a lot of things had to go right for this to work out. As you know, I mean, it's such a small time window, and just everything has to go right. And for Taylor and I, like sometimes things weren't perfect, and so it felt a little like rocky. But I could just imagine like if something different happened in any way, like it could have just all fallen apart and this never would have happened.
I
So
feel like it needed a couple of little things had to go wrong so we could know that like we could overcome some forms of adversity. Like I feel like if it was just like perfect, perfect, perfect until the end, we would have been,
still skeptical.
yeah.
You know, I was actually I was thinking, Garrett, when you were talking and just what you said, Taylor, like some things also had to go wrong for you guys to be together. Either that meant like previous relationships breaking up or, just everything had to be so perfectly right or so perfectly wrong in a way to then meet. And Zach, I talk about that with me and Zach all the time too. Like, we really know that we can get through things. Like when we got married, when we stood up there, we had gone through things. We broke up, we got back together, and I think that is something that I felt really confident in getting married because I knew that we could get past those things. So I think that's such a good point, Taylor, that you brought up about having if everything was just too perfect, then you're walking into a marriage knowing that it's not going to always be perfect, but that's all you've experienced. So it's important to have even some small things kind of go wrong so that you can learn and grow from that. I think that's a really important thing to know.
Yeah. What do you think was your biggest hiccup on the way to the altar?
I mean, it had to have been the text message, right? I mean, I don't think there would be anything else that stood out bigger.
Yeah, I'd say the text message, and that was kind of the perfect storm because you don't really consider also that like the viewer doesn't know or see how much stress you're under balancing work, filming at night, making this big decision, telling your family who might not be on board we're going to this like party where they're probably going to invite your exes and it's going to be stressful, and then we're getting on a plane the next morning at 6 a.m. to go meet my parents who are a bit skeptical. I'm in a costume. Like it's just like it's just everything together was it just made the situation way worse. But in the grand scheme of things, like I never felt like Garrett was lying to me. It was just I had to identify are these kind of previous traumas of myself that I've had people lie to me, and I'm kind of like projecting this onto him, which is ultimately what I knew in my heart that he was a good guy and he wasn't lying to me, and we were just under a lot of pressure and a lot of things were going on. And Garrett still went with me the next morning to the airport at 6 a.m. and I was like, I can decide on the plane if I don't want you to meet my parents and I'm done. Like, I reserve that right. This is a lot. And Garrett sat next to me shitting himself for like hours.
A long flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not sleeping. You didn't sleep the night before. Yeah, it was frustrating. It was difficult for me on my end because, so first of all, yeah, it was like kind of, there's a lot of context. I hadn't been in a relationship in a very long time. So knowing the right thing to do, like, would have been to, as we talked about later, was like immediately text and like shut it down and then immediately bring it up to Taylor when there was a moment during the day. But the day went on as it did, and like we're all very busy and everything, and so like I didn't think about it again to bring it up before the party, which I should have. And like the moment right before the party, we're sitting there like having a drink, waiting to go into the scene, and that's when it clicked. And I was like, oh yeah, and I brought it up there like an idiot because I didn't think anything of it, because it didn't mean anything, and that's where my biggest mistake was. And then I was like, crap, I'm an idiot, so I'm like kicking myself. But then I see like Taylor's reaction, and I'm like, oh. I may have just totally screwed all of this up over something innocent, So then what sucks is like, I know I'm a good person. I know I'm a great guy, and I know I would never cheat on Taylor or treat her poorly or like lie to her or anything. But she doesn't know this because she just freaking met me. So, and especially if you've had a previous relationship where the person hasn't been honest, that, your experiences kick in and you're like, this is the same thing I've seen before, So you don't know what to believe. And me on my side, I'm like, I know I'm honest. I know I'm truthful. I know I didn't do anything wrong here, but I can't just, I can only convince you through actions over time, and we don't have that. So it's hard.
So ultimately, when did you kind of like make the decision like, okay, I'm going to let him meet my parents. I'm going to see this out. And it's such a good point that you need time to kind of prove these things. So how did you guys like navigate past that?
I just knew in my heart of hearts that Garrett wasn't lying and that he had my best intentions at heart, and that I would regret more throwing away this experience, like seeing the experience all the way through, and like, in some ways already putting my parents through, like they were not on board when like they were on board for me to go, and they did not think I was going to go as far as
You're like, you're not going to get engaged.
when they got
Yeah.
the call, they were like, absolutely not. And I was like, and then, yeah, it was more just on intuition. Like, as soon as we landed, I thought about it, I cried about it. I was madly texting my best friend, and she talked me through it. And she was like, you should trust your gut. Like, in this situation, I don't really know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's a lot of faith at that point. You don't have the time, so you're like, I have to trust this person, and it's a lot. It's heavy.
Chat GPT, I'm just kidding.
Garrett, what were you feeling in that moment? Because there's this in between moment where you didn't know if Taylor was just going to dump you, right? Like you're kind of like,
Yeah.
oh God, what were you thinking? Like on that plane flight?
It all felt out of my control. Like there's nothing I can say. It's just actions and time, and Taylor needs to work through it on her own. And me hounding her or adding any words to her thought process wasn't going to help. And so it was just me to be there and be supportive and just ride it out and ride out the emotions. And it's tough because I'm a problem solver. I want to fix things, but there's nothing to fix here. It's just going to take time and for Taylor to work through it. And I wasn't going to be the person that she could speak to work through this any more than we had already done. And then, of course, yes, there were moments afterwards we sit down and we talk about it again, and she'd ask more questions, but I would let her come to me with that rather than like trying to like help me answer you, help you figure this out. It's like that's not the role I'm playing here. So it was difficult to swallow my tongue and pride and sit there and wait and hope and just try to be there and be supportive for Taylor when she was ready to ask questions again and to speak through it.
One of the things I would like advise someone on that's going to go into the pods is trusting their intuition. Like that's what you have, right? Pretty much sometimes all you have is your intuition. And so it's not always easy for people to be in tune with that. And I really appreciate that about you, Taylor. Like you're like, I just knew it in my heart. Like I trusted my intuition. I knew it. And like the people that go through this experience and ultimately get married and are happily with their partners, I think the intuition plays such a big role in that if you ask all of them.
So I kind of want to talk a little bit about, there was some, I don't know if you'd call it supernatural or
Yeah.
clandestine destiny, fate, what that happened in the pods. But Bliss and I kind of had that experience where I really felt like there were supernatural signs that were being revealed to me, just telling me, this is the person, this is your person. And I feel like we got to see a little bit of that, but I imagine there was probably more that we didn't get to see.
Yeah, and you probably know that because you had the same experience where they showed some things but not all of it. Yeah, I mean it felt like every day in there was something new or several things new that just Taylor and I both said that comment was like, is this
Simulation.
yeah, is this
Zach and I literally had that conversation when
AI over there? Yeah. Even like, dumb little things that you're just like, well, this is too weird. Like
Pod disco.
we picked the same songs in Pod Disco. Yeah. And just,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if you guys had this. I don't remember if this was a thing, but yeah, you pick, I
5
think,
songs.
So, yes. However, every time I would start to go put on the headphones, I could be like, "Well, wait, I actually like one more thing before we listen to the music." We did that for so long that the date ended and we never got, and I love music so much, and like I was like freaking out that I wasn't going to be able to listen to music while we were there. And so I was like craving this, but literally I would start to like he's like, "Oh, wait, one more thing." So we never listened to the music. So I have a question about the wedding. So when you guys you're getting ready to get married and both of your parents separately say that the 13th was their wedding days too. Did you guys know that going in that
no.
everyone's parents, so when did you make this discovery? Was it watching the episodes back? Which no
It
judgment.
might have been, honestly, but I know I'd forgotten about it again until it kind of came up. But I think we talked about it with our families at one point after that. They probably brought it up, but there's so much going on, so much information flying around through your head. In the episode, you see me writing it down. I'm like, I was still writing, like perfecting my vows that I didn't ever perfect, but I was trying to.
We
And
get it.
their parents were like, "Did you?" My mom was like, "Did you know that we were married on the 13th?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that's interesting," But I'm
You're
like,
like, "Cool."
yeah, nothing was
Cool, mom.
clicking. Nothing was clicking. But Taylor had a much more beautiful moment with the parents on that one.
Yeah, I was like, I recognize that both of our parents were married for 35 years.
Yeah.
Like I thought
Oh.
that's the like similarity that I picked up on.
Yeah, I don't think they mentioned that either.
That's so beautiful. I didn't know that. So what's something that you guys learned from your parents' marriages that you're taking into your marriage that you're like, okay, they did this really well and I want to do that too?
I think going into it, like their like compromise is the word that is thrown around, but until you actually do it in a marriage, I don't think you actually understand what that means. I would also say your partner really is the person that you problem solve with, and it's not always going to be fun. It should be fun, but it's not always going to be, I think, a really linear process. And so you want to have a good partner that you're on the same team, you're trying to problem solve something together so that you guys can move on. And that's just constantly what I feel like a marriage is like you're figuring things out as you go. It's not just like this one end thing. And that's kind of how my parents have described it to me, but until I started doing it with like Garrett, I didn't really know what that meant. So I think that that's what they've passed down to me. What about you?
My parents have been through a lot together, and watching them have some really hard moments. I mean, all the way up through my childhood, like I've seen a few like big moments, and to watch them battle through those and come back together stronger every time, I think is really impactful. If I had had a different experience in life where I see people having turmoil and problems and then they break up, I maybe would have been more accustomed to that being the norm, and maybe that would have been my course of action in my marriage. And we've had really hard times already, and we've come back stronger and felt better about it. And I have to give my parents credit for that. That's probably a huge impact, been a huge impact on me. So
Both Zach and I, our parents are divorced, so I love hearing from other, people where their parents were married for so long to hear little snippets about what made it work. And the compromise thing is obviously a big one. And with you guys, where to live and where, is it going to be San Diego? Is it going to be DC?
During the show, we talked about San Diego, but they cut out that we were talking about that in like 5 to 7 years. And so it seemed like to the viewer that we were planning to do that like expeditiously. We actually had like agreed to doing digital nomading. Once we kind of got into like the marriage and obviously the show was coming out, digital nomading was just, it was way too much. It was super overwhelming. It didn't make any sense. And so when we were thinking about what compromise for the near term that wasn't in Fredericksburg, DC was great. We're really excited about DC. I lived in DC for 5 years. I have family in the area. Garrett's still an hour-ish from home. He's never not lived in Fredericksburg. So I think we're all very happy, and it's a great compromise in a lot of ways. And I feel like compromise might sound like a negative connotation where you're settling, but I don't
Mhm.
I don't feel that way at all.
Yeah, compromise isn't just one person's way or the other, right? It's like finding a solution that works for both of you. That's really what the compromise is, not one person kind of agreeing all the time to what the other person wants.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in the book Getting to Yes. Have you ever heard of it?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. And people often think when they go into a negotiation, and everything in a relationship is a negotiation, and they think of it as being a zero-sum game, that it's either I win or you lose, and they get
Mhm,
fixed into dichotomies, false dichotomies. It doesn't have
mhm,
to be a this or that. There's a
mhm,
z-axis
mhm,
in a negotiation, and many more, right? It's
mhm.
not so when you fall into those simple binaries of like, okay, I want this and you want this, then I guess I won't have this and you will get this, or I will get this and you won't get this. It can often be just starting with a conversation of like, why? Like, why do you want this? Why do you want to go to the park? And I want to go to, I don't know, the movie theater. And it might come out that you just really want to have intimate time together. And you don't think that a movie is going to be that intimate time that you want. And so if we start with why, it's a lot easier to solve conflicts. I think having a little bit more of a critical conversation with each other can result in a better outcome for both parties.
Yeah, we're still learning how to do all that, to be honest. I think it's you're always learning, right, in marriage, and you're growing. And I think, when you meet people, or and when you get married to someone, or even in just in relationships prior, like, it can bring out different sides of you. So, like, is there anything you guys, like, learned about yourself going through this process or being married to each other that you didn't know before?
I think that you're always learning about your partner. And that's what I think we've asked a lot of successful marriages and married couples, like, what is something that you could like say about marriage? And it's that you're always learning about your partner. And I feel like obviously you guys can empathize with this. Like, we didn't know the person. Like, we kind of knew the core tenets of them, and like I think the pillars of their personality, but when it comes to like actually getting to know quirks or how they actually function in like conflict, like you're learning through that. And I feel like Garrett and I have learned a lot about how we resolve conflict. We're way better at approaching it from kind of the way that Zach was describing, like, okay, why do I feel this way? What are like former lived experiences that might make me feel this way? And we usually want the same thing, and we want the other person to be happy. I learned a lot that Garrett and I really do enjoy doing the same things most of the time, and sometimes we're not always aligned in like how we do those things, but we've definitely learned to work through it, so it's actually like an enjoyable process.
Yeah, yeah. You don't. It's not, and it's not just that. Like you're constantly learning your partner as if like it's a book that you're still getting through. It's that book is changing. There's new versions all the time, and so you're learning about someone as they're also learning about themselves and growing and changing in their own right. And you have to learn how to communicate those changes, and those can be the harder ones. It's like, well, I thought you said this, before, and it's like, well, I know, and I felt that way, and now I'm feeling, so it's like things just life forces you to change and to introspect and to understand your own feelings, and then you have to communicate that with your partner, and you have to be proactive about that and work through that because that can also be challenging. So yeah, it's a never-ending cycle, and you have to be really good at it.
Taylor, when did you know that Garrett was the one?
I think in Mexico, when we were in the pods, it was like they paid someone on the other side to be the person that was my husband. And then it's a little awkward at first, and you're now in person and you're putting a face to name. So I think in Mexico, after our third really hot and objectively not fun date, where like
Temperature, not like
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
it's like hurricane season, October in Cabo, not it. And I was just laughing like hysterically because Garrett and I were just hanging out the entire time,
Yeah.
waiting. Yeah, I think I remember vividly like these bubbles coming over me and like being like, oh my God, I could see myself spending the rest of my life with this person. So I think that was the first instance, but it just kind of builds upon itself over time. I wouldn't say there's one that I'm like definitively, this is my person. I feel like it's always like layering on top of each other.
What about you, Garrett?
So I always, I don't know,
Hasn't happened yet.
this whole, yeah. Okay.
Still waiting for the moment to click. Riding out on faith right now.
Yeah. Just we're still riding it out here. No, there's one moment I remember from the show that the filming experience that stands out for me, and that I would probably point to. I don't know if it fits this definition, but it definitely stands out nonetheless, and like maybe was probably like the cementer for me was we were back in DC, or well, just outside of DC filming,
Arlington.
and we had we had an apartment there, obviously, and we had many days back to back of filming. I'm working nonstop, and I was just exhausted. And I had my first like rough day where like I felt really like run down, tired, and it had nothing to do with Taylor. It was just like this is killing me. I'm not sleeping. Like this is hard. Taylor came home. We weren't filming that night, luckily, and we just chilled out on the couch and did some wedding planning and joked around and watched videos. And I just remember that like I felt so much better when Taylor, came home and we were hanging out and got to relax and just be in each other's company without the cameras and all this stuff. And just, I felt like my day was immediately like flipped upside down into like this beautiful, conclusion. And I was like, this could be the life, like this would be nice.
I thought it was going to be when I went fishing for the first time with you.
Yeah, right after we got married, yeah.
I remember having a moment like that off camera with Bliss where we went to a birthday party, and I don't know
Chelsea's birthday?
No, it
Molly's
was, yeah.
birthday?
I don't know if I had ever felt like this sense of being on the same team. Like it was just this connection with her that like we
At
were
the birthday party?
that we were like on the same team, like going in. I don't know what it was.
I often find like when you ask people these questions, it's often the most simple of things, right? But that's sometimes what means the most, as cliche as that is. But it's truly like these simple things, like having a calming evening together, being able to laugh and hang out and enjoy your time, even though it's sweltering hot and you've been waiting for 3 hours to start filming or something. So that's really cool. I love that.
I like the sentiment that like life is what happens in between all of the birthdays and the wedding.
Mhm.
So those are the moments you really have to that's what it all is at the end of the day. So if you're enjoying those moments, it's gonna work.
Do you guys like to read recreationally at all?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you like to read?
So I read mostly nonfiction things, and I like a lot of what they used to call self-help, but now it's like what is it?
Personal
I like
development.
that one, personal development.
I enjoy those a lot, but I also read I just finished a book that talks about, it goes over a lot of data about how meditation changes structures in your brain,
Mm.
it changes your mind.
What is it called?
It's traits.
I've read that book as well, Altering Traits.
Altered Traits, that's it. Yeah, Altered Traits. I just finished it, yeah.
Yeah, I was exposed to that concept right when I got out of law school. And I had looked at some of the literature that was coming out around how just guided breathing meditations can have a substantial effect on your ability to regulate, for your prefrontal cortex to regulate the amygdala, the connection between the two. So it's pretty powerful. Just taking some time out of the day and focusing on your breath.
I used to struggle a lot with migraines, and Zach would have me do box breathing, and it
Yeah,
would
yeah,
take and then a little bit of Wim Hof breathing, and then
yeah.
some box breathing, and then it would just take my migraines away.
I,
It's
I
quite
did some box
beautiful.
breathing in the pods, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Unintentional, not planned.
No, it was intentional, all right.
That's the Wim Hof, right? The
Yeah,
hyperventilating.
Yeah.
Taylor, what about you?
I would say I do enjoy reading before bed. I'm going to be honest that I have not been doing
we used to
that.
more than we did
We
recently.
used
yeah.
to like both like bring our books to
did.
bed and not try to be on a screen
Yeah.
an hour before bed. But
It feels like these days we're like, all right, it's time for bed. All right, brush your teeth, get in bed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Seriously,
like,
you just like fall asleep the second your head hits the pillow.
I really have enjoyed books that were on relationships because I feel like I had a lot to learn. I think they really helped me. It's I don't know if you know the Gottman Institute.
Yes, they actually live here in Seattle.
Yeah.
Oh,
oh,
that's
cool.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that book, 8 Great Dates, I think
They have
is
a lot
super
of books.
informative. But I listen to a lot of podcasts.
What's like your favorite one? Your favorite podcast?
Zack and Bliss, right?
Just drop it. Yeah. There's
Oh
this
my God, I didn't
one.
know.
I can't think of it exactly.
That's going in the trailer.
I would say Huberman Labs. Love Huberman
Yeah.
Labs.
Zach loves Huberman.
And The Financial Feminist.
Nice.
Oh.
Sam Harris, that's my boy. I like his stuff.
Oh. Yeah, Huberman is a big. Zach really turned me on to Huberman. We listened to him on long car rides, which we somehow always do a lot of. But
We had talked about your journey in figuring out where you wanted to live.
mhm.
Can you walk us through that? Taylor, you had kind of expressed on the show that you wanted to move over to San Diego.
Well, you said that they didn't include the part where you said 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
They already kind of answered that question.
Well, I kind of wanted to go a little deeper into it, but we
okay.
don't have to. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean it was a long thing for us, so it's we talk about as long as you want. It was a big it was our big conflict over last summer, the summer before the show came out. It was tough. Like Taylor and I both like had many moments just sitting on the couch, like holding each other's hands and like trying to figure out what to do because it just felt like such a conflict. And me in particular, I felt bad because like I told Taylor I would give this a go and it's something I could see myself doing. And then when it came down to it, like I started to feel, I was away from my family for a while, and I started to feel these emotions of like I'm homesick. I miss my family. It's like it's hard for I can walk to 3 of like my best friends growing up right now from this house.
Oh, wow.
And so what you have that in your adult life, it's pretty rare and it's a good feeling. So it's my first time not having that, and so it was really hard. And I know Taylor really loves her family, wants to be around them, and loves San Diego for all the you don't have to explain why you love San Diego.
San Diego's amazing.
Yeah, people love it. So you have this thing, and we love each other. So we're like, well, we can make this work. And then like the real world sits in, and it's like things it's things that sounded good in theory, like in practice, are hard, and you have to work through that. And so Taylor and I still working through that today. Like what we're gonna do, we're gonna move to DC, and it's gonna be a challenge. It's gonna be a challenge for both of us for the family reasons and like just where you want to be reasons. I mean, it's going to be tough, but we love each other and we wanted to come up with a compromise, and this was the idea. I think the other nugget from this whole challenge was like I didn't like that I couldn't see 10 years down the road. I had to let that go and say I don't need to have the future all planned out, if 10 years and beyond, and just take things 1, 2, 3 years at a time, and that's where I found comfort. Taylor always says, she's like, we didn't think we'd be here in a year, and it's true, so it's really hard to predict, but I'm a planner. I like to have I'm a problem solver. I like to have all the things solved and understood, and I had to really let go of that and this whole thing, and was tough. But I'm very excited about it, and like I said, I found a lot of comfort in like life's very unpredictable. Like you're going to be wrong, and I always was. I always planned my life 10 years ahead, and I was always wrong. So what's different about this one?
You didn't plan to get married on Love Is
man.
Blind 10 years ago?
So,
Dude, I came to terms with that on Love Is Blind. I remember one of my producers, Bobby, had talked to me. He's like, Zach, you're always trying to like figure things out and plan it ahead, and you don't have any idea what's going to happen. You don't have any control over it. And I just realized I had all these predictions and expectations, and I thought I knew how everyone was, and I had no clue. I just had no clue. I think having that humility of the less you know, the more you know.
You mean the less you know, the less you know?
The less you know, the more you know. Yeah, the more you know, the more you're aware of how little you know.
There you go. And that's like a really good example of how marriage changes you. Like when you get married, you what?
Dunning-Kruger effect. The less you know, the more you
That's
know.
That's it. Yeah.
I guess like going through this experience, like and getting married in this way, like you have to grow so quickly together. You kind of have to make this decision, like, okay, like I have to almost like embrace the chaos. Like I have to embrace change really quickly. And if I want to make this work, I have to put myself out there in a lot of ways that you wouldn't expect to, or you wouldn't even have to if you got married in more of a traditional kind of way. What's next for you guys?
Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Woo!
We're going on our first like vacation since I don't even know, like actual vacation. So
I'm still
it's
stressed about it.
Yeah, I'm leaving this weekend, and then going with my family's crashing. And
I
so
love that.
it's gonna be doing a cross family vacation.
Yeah, I'm joining a little bit later in the week, but yeah, I'll still be there for like a week and a half.
That's so great. We did our family vacation in Panama. My stepmom's from there, so
Oh, cool.
with my whole family, and Zach was there, and my dad was like, "This is your other honeymoon." It wasn't a honeymoon. My whole family was there. We were sharing an apartment with my sister and her husband and my brother. It was not a honeymoon, but it was such a great fun time. And we traveled like I think 2 weeks after the show dropped. Like we filmed after the altar and then went straight into traveling, and it was wild. And people are gonna recognize you in Costa Rica, and you're gonna be like, "How?" But they will. Like it's so international. That's one thing we really learned. Like every place we went to like 20 different places around Europe, and everyone it's going to be crazy. It just really hits how big the show is, and it'll be beautiful to see like people from all different cultures be like inspired by your love story. And I'm really excited for you guys. Costa Rica is going to be great. A little break from the snow and the cold will be nice.
So
Yeah,
you traveled like
that's crazy.
You planned a trip on purpose, like right after the show.
Why did we do that? Why we didn't
I
know.
didn't
We
think
were
about
like
it.
it's so funny because like you just have no idea what's coming for you when you go into this experience. You film it, you're living your life, the show's gonna come out, you're anxious, and then you plan life as you normally would, right? There was just no way for us to even comprehend how it was going to be for us because we probably would not have
'Cause it was like
planned our honeymoon after.
it was right after the
We
altar.
flew like 3 days after the altar wrapped to Europe.
I was afraid I was going to lose my job. We'd been gone for so long. I was like trying to. I just worked. Barreled down and worked nonstop forever.
Thanks for staying a little bit late. Sorry for all the technical issues. It was so
Awesome.
good
Glad
to
to
catch
see
up
you.
with you guys. Enjoy Costa Rica. It's
Thank you
gonna
so
be
much.
amazing and lovely.
It's
We're
great
looking
to
forward
see
to
you
seeing the pictures. Yay.
I'd love to do this again, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the
Yes,
time out of your
thank
day
you.
to
Take
talk with us.
care.
Bye
Bye, guys.
guys.
See you, Garrett. See you,
Congrats
Taylor.
again.
Thank you so much.
Woohoo.